All right, good day. We continue with the inventory module training. We did start the other day. We looked at warehousing, we looked at locations, we looked at routes, we looked at types, operation types. So just to continue down, products we covered in the very first introduction training to Odoo, how to create a product, tangibles versus non-tangibles, services, consumables versus stockables. So we covered that quite in detail. One other part that is key when we're talking about products is units of measure. All right. So units of measure are broken down into two aspects. There's a category to it, and then there's the actual units of measures. All right. So all our units of measures take the form of or fit into one form or another of a category. So for example, one of the most basic units of measure is weight. All right. So we say weight, and in the category weight, we then have the actual units of measures, which are grams, kgs, tons, and so forth. Another category item would be something like time. So time is a category, or a unit of measure category. And in that category, we have seconds, minutes, hours, days, and so forth. All right. So those are the two distinctions around units of measure. We've got a category, and then into the actual category, we fit in an actual unit of measure. All right. So for example, we've got length as a category. Inside the category length, what we must then set is the base unit. All right. So when we've got the category, so length or distance, we then put in all the units of measure: centimeters, kilometers, meters, millimeters. But for every category, we must have a base measure. All right. And that's simply done. Let's just take it practically here on the screen. So let's take length. Sorry. There's a distance. No. Okay, let's just order them here. All right, so length / distance. Okay. All right, so in the length / distance category, we've got kilometers, inches, foot, miles, meters, centimeters. These are all in that category of length and distance, right? So you see this one. Can you see where it says type? Yes. In particular, it says reference unit of measure for this category. So a meter becomes the base for everything else around this category. So it is the reference unit for everything else in the category. So what happens then is that if you create something that is, let's say, centimeters, all right? So we've got centimeters here, and it says smaller than the reference unit of measure. All right, so basically you then go there and you say, okay, how much smaller is it? So it's 1:100. In other words, it's 100 times smaller than the what? Than the reference. All right, so yes, how many centimeters in a meter? There's 100 centimeters in a meter. So that's how you set the category you've seen. You set then the actual units of measure, and then you must have a base unit of measure for that category. And then everything else is either bigger or smaller. Let's look at one which is bigger. For example, let's look at what's bigger here. Bigger, we've got kilometers. All right, so we say the base is meters. Kilometers is bigger than the unit reference. And how do we calculate that? We say, right, in a kilometer, there's 1,000 meters. Right, so it's 1:1,000. So in other words, it's bigger, it's 1,000 times bigger than the unit of reference. All right, is that clear? The concept of the category and the actual units of measure and the reference. All right, now let's apply this now to a product, which is the key aspect here. All right, so let's go to a product. let me take one of the sands, river sand or pit sand. Okay, that one's wrong. Okay, I don't know why these are in units. They should be in meters cubed. But anyway. I'm looking for tar. Okay, I'm having a hard time finding a product. Anyway, let's just find, let's use beef. So I'm gonna group this by unit of measure. Let's look at these ones in kgs. All right, so for example, we've got this black master batch. It's something used in the HDP manufacture. All right. So where this becomes important then is that you set a unit of measure on the product. All right. So that basically defines how we issue it out. Do we issue out measuring kgs? Do we issue out measuring length, centimeters? Do we issue out as just units, right? Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But also more importantly, there's the second unit of measure, which is the purchasing unit of measure. Where this becomes important, for example, is to say that, all right, you may issue out in kgs, right? But you may buy in tons. All right. So, for example, I could say quarry stones, I buy them in meters cubed, but I issue them out in bags. All right, or number of kgs. All right. So this is very important and clear and important distinction of why you need to understand the units of measure. For example, the other day I saw you processing cable ties, Fisher plugs, and things like that. Now, normally those things you don't buy them in units. You buy them in a pack of 100. So your unit of measure then would be pack of 100 for purchasing, but your issuing unit of measure would be units. You get it? So what that will automatically do when you raise a purchase order in the system, if you've said that your purchase unit of measure is hundreds, when you put 1, it's 1 times 100. So if you say 10, you're actually buying 1,000. All right, so very important distinction that you need to understand around the unit of measure versus the purchase unit of measure. All right, so if you understand the categories, you understand the actual units themselves, you understand the reference unit of measure for that category, and then you set it on your product correctly, then you won't have any problems. Otherwise, what has happened historically is that the purchase unit of measure is 1,000 units. Now, when you go to buy you think you're buying 5 units, like 5 individual items, and you put 5, and you end up buying 5,000. All right. So it's very important, and you need to be very clear on that. All right. So is there any questions in regards to units of measure, the categories, the reference unit of measure, and the application on a product and the purchase order?
Yeah, let's say, for example, we are buying like screws. Screws, which can be system will be issued in units.
Yes.
And now when we go to buy the 15 items, so how do we?
So again, very key, very important. Check the product, what's been set. And unfortunately, in Odoo, once you set the purchase unit of measure, so if you leave it as units, forever thereafter, as long as they're using this product, you need to purchase also in units. So if it's a pack of 15, all right, what you need to do when you raise your purchase order is, because our unit of measure is not packs of 15, what you then need to do is actually break it down on the purchase order line into units. So if you know it's a pack of 15, you're going to put 15, you're going to divide the pack price by the number of units. So quantity 15 multiplied by the unit price of each unit, so that you have enough in the pack. And don't put it as a pack, otherwise then you have to issue it as a pack as well. All right, does that make sense? Okay. All right, so that's that in regards to units of measure. The last one is delivery methods. All right, so for us as telecontract, it's not been traditionally a big one, but it's something that may apply from time to time, okay? So we have delivery methods. Now, there are multiple types of delivery, and you can continue to create as you need in the system. But let's just look at a few that are there. There's a free delivery, right, which we then assume then either as a fixed charge that we build into a product, all right, and we specify or set the fixed charge there, all right. So this is just to say that, okay, when a salesperson is creating a quotation, there'll be an option for them to select a delivery method. So if we have delivery methods, whether it's free or customer, there's a fee, it's free or there's a charge to it, we can create the delivery methods that the customers will be able, the salespeople will be able to select when they're creating their sale order. All right. But as I said, traditionally for us, besides maybe the solar products now, this has not been a very big area. All right. So we can create different delivery methods and different costs around that. Okay. So you see this one takes a formula and it says if the price is equal to more than 50,000, then 0.1 times the price. This is how we are calculating the delivery cost. All right. So, but again, as I said, for us right now, it's not been a very big area, but the functionality and capability is there. So it's important for you to know that. All right. Then packages, again, maybe not so big, but now maybe with the solar, it may be an area we may want to look at. Right. So basically we're saying how do we package our items or our delivery, our warehouse out or our deliveries. All right. So you can then come and create and specify and then put in a box. So if we bought some boxes, which we'll be using for packaging different goods, we can then specify the width, height, length, and the maximum weight. And then also this allows us then to specify how many units go into a package. All right. So when you're doing your delivery, you can then actually select the number of units and the suitable packaging for those, for delivery purposes. But as I said, this has not been a very big part of our use case of Odoo at the moment, but the capability, the functionality is there. All right, are there any questions then in regards to units of measure, delivery? Is it clear?
I want to ask, for example, some items will be mixed, isn't it? To say, let's say the guys come to request, let's say screws, and then the same requisition they will requested, let's say cable.
Right.
Now, Does the system allow me to, let's say, to change the unit of measure for one item only, or it has to be equal?
Yes, the system will allow you to change the units of measure.
All right.
They don't have to be equal. That's why it requires you knowing and understanding that the work now. Because now if a guy is going to do chunking work
Yes.
and he requests 15 fisher plugs and 20 wood screws, obviously that should tell you there's something wrong because you can't use the screws without the fisher plugs. So that requires you to now, as you're saying, to get more information about the work and the product.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. I think we are done with this one.